Yeah, if it wasn't the 25th, it would have been maybe the day after, but it's dated the 25th. I'm almost positive I provided it on the 25th.
There's
Yeah.
no reason for you to hold on to it for a couple extra days.
No, I think it was the 25th.
Do you know when it was provided to the Commonwealth, that report?
No, I don't.
In the 25th, the report that you provided to the defense on the 25th, it had new information in it, didn't it?
It had the information from Mr. Burgess's supplemental report. That was the additions.
Why did you wait until the 25th to put it together?
That's when I was asked to do it.
Who asked
My clients, Mr. Jackson.
you? He said, please have this on the 25th.
We had a phone call on the 25th and discussed Mr. Burgess's supplemental report. During that phone call, he asked me to update the presentation, and I did so, and then provided it.
How did the date of the 25th come about? Why the 25th was the date you provided?
That's when he requested it. I think it was a Sunday, actually. Okay.
When you first got involved in this case, it was last fall,
Correct.
and at that time, you received some information that Mr. Burgess wanted to look at the text stream data or the different modules on what you later learned was the defendant's Lexus, correct?
Correct.
There was a proposal from Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess wanted to go back to the car and look at the modules to try to download more information from them, correct?
Correct.
And you then got involved to look at what his request was, the procedure that you wanted to follow.
Yes.
When you did that, were you given any materials about what had happened before you and Mr. Burgess both got involved?
I don't recall specifically, and I don't think so. I think I was just provided the notice of testing that was to be done.
Well, you ended up drafting an affidavit.
I did.
And in drafting an affidavit, you pointed out some oversights of Mr. Burgess, didn't you?
I did.
Determining the oversights required some study of actually the data and the information that was available, wouldn't it?
It would.
So, can we presume that before you wrote the affidavit pointing out the oversights, you had looked at other materials?
If I recall correctly, the notice of additional testing from Mr. Burgess contained attached to it a whole report by him documenting why he thought there was an inadequate initial acquisition, why he thought the sizes were wrong. So I don't remember referencing anything beyond all the information that was contained in that. And whether that was combined by somebody else or not, I don't know. That's how it was provided.
Did you end up looking at the report of Ms. Gaffney and what had happened in the past with the download and search of Ms. Lee's Lexus materials?
If I'm remembering right again, I think Ms. Gaffney's report was also attached to that same singular file.
You learned that the defense expert, Ms. Gaffney, had downloaded data from chips, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Burgess was asserting that there was information missing and believed that there was missing information from the chips.
Correct.
Objection.
In that form, it's sustained. It's stricken.
My apologies. The conclusion Mr. Burgess had is that he believed there was missing information from the chips.
He did. He miscalculated the size of the chips.
Did you do any study to see if there was actually information missing from the original download?
No, I looked at the data sheets for the chips and then immediately realized what the error was. The data sheets specify a size in megabits or gigabits, and Mr. Burgess had written his report in the context of megabytes and gigabytes.
And then you asserted, or you took the position in your affidavit, that there should be no further chip-off, no further study of those chips, other than to ensure the amount of memory was sufficient.
It's not how I recall specifically what I said.
Well, let me read it because I don't want to try to malign your words.
Please.
Mrs. Burgess' proposed protocol labeled reattempt chip-off acquisition is unnecessary because the file size of the acquisition performed by Ms. Gaffney already matches the expected memory storage capacity of the components.
That sounds accurate.
If you want to see this, I don't want to read from the document. It's you need to see if they're actually showing up.
That's fine. I trust your reading.
However, an acquisition may be conducted for the sole purposes of ensuring the contents of the memory chips have not been altered since the last testing by recording the checksum.
Yes.
Did it cross your mind at that point that there was important data in those modules that was not seen or recovered or obtained by Ms. Gaffney?
No.
Did you want to know when Mr. Burgess was looking for more data, more information, what he thought was missing?
He stated, I think, in his report or affidavit, I'm not sure what it was, but he stated what he thought was missing was there was a physical size difference. So he thought there was not corrupt data, but just missing chunks of data.
Log on information, you've heard of that. Ignition on, ignition off information
Yes.
in an infotainment system. That's important information when you're reconstructing an accident, isn't it?
It could be.
Well, you read information in this case. Pretty important in this case, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
And so you would not want to engage in that process without this pretty important information, would you?
Which process?
Of an accident reconstruction?
Sorry, so can you restate it, the whole question?
I'll
Yeah.
ask it again.
Yeah.
You said you have some experiences in accident reconstructions.
Yes.
Don't you want all the data available? More data, the better?
Generally, yes.
You wouldn't want to ignore data on purpose, would you?
No.
I mean, as a data analyst, the more data, the more you get to look at.
Yes.
And so the power log on information that actually has date and time, that's critical in an accident reconstruction, isn't it?
In some accident reconstructions, in some, there's no debate about when a vehicle was on or off, but if there is, then yes.
Not just on and off. The power log on and off gives you the date and time that you can match with the text stream data, correct?
Yes, it does.
Because you know text stream data itself doesn't have date and time.
It can, this vehicle didn't. It can, but this vehicle did not.
This had a running time instead, like
That's
a stopwatch.
correct.
So this data that was not found during the initial process, that was critical data at the time.
I don't think prior to the process anyone knew that this particular Lexus infotainment system stored those key on and key off times.
Right, the only person that found this out was Shannon Burgess.
He found it in the process, but I don't think anybody knew in advance of this case. There was nothing out there about it. So to my knowledge, this is the first time that this specific data has ever been released into the wild.
But it was on the board there, if someone knew what to look for or got creative, they could maybe find it.
Yes, more so to your if got creative, because I don't think anyone would have been able to have the foreknowledge that there would have definitely been that.
Shannon Burgess did.
Sustained. I'll strike it.
And when Shannon Burgess went to obtain that data that everybody else overlooked or didn't know about, you went with him.
Yes,
So you had a process where he was going to now control the data and take the information that was left behind and remove it from the infotainment board, correct?
he actually never specified anything about the SD card in that initial notice. So it was a departure from his protocol, and it was a little surprising to me when I got there that the protocol was written with a specific focus on a number of other chips, and it became very apparent to me very quickly that the focus was not on those chips, and the focus was on this SD card that had previously been unmentioned. There was nothing in there about that prior to that.
Did it offend you, or were you impressed that he had found that?
I was a little confused because I went into it with an expectation. Generally, if we write a protocol, we adhere to the protocol. If we're going to deviate, we have a discussion about deviations. So I was just surprised. It's not customary to sort of shift out of nowhere. But other than that, I did not know what to think of it because I'd never heard of that.
Did you give any input? Did you have any knowledge about the SD card and how it worked?
No.
So when you watched Mr. Burgess remove the SD card, did you appreciate he'd have to engage in what you call reverse engineering?
He did not elaborate to me exactly what his whole process was at first. It sort of came out as time progressed through the first day in his office in Texas, and then I learned more as we moved to the second testing in Massachusetts. But he didn't explain it to me in one go.
Did you, at that point, understand or appreciate the relevance of the SD card relative to the infotainment system and what it could do as far as the amount of information that could then be available?
He never spoke throughout the 3 days at all about what kind of data he expected from the card or would be on the card or could be. He made no mention of the data.
Not what he said to you, but given your expertise, did it ever dawn on you the significance or importance of this SD card that was sitting in plain sight?
Objection.
Sustained, you can ask it differently.
Did it ever dawn on you that as Mr. Burgess was recovering this information left behind, that there was something important or significant about it?
At the time, I thought it was a possibility. If you reference the initial work, a number of different memory components were identified in this infotainment. There isn't a singular memory chip. So if we're looking for data, it could be in any of them. So we found a new source of data storage, and there could be something there, there could be nothing there. It was unknown to me.
But it turned out there was.
There was.
Now, when you were watching Mr. Burgess work as an expert, if you felt like there was something inappropriate or he had some great oversight, you could write a report about that, couldn't you?
I could.
Did you ever write any report in this case?
No.
So you never wrote a report for your preparation of coming in and your data in the PowerPoint presentation, right?
Correct.
You never wrote a report regarding any of your observations of Mr. Burgess.
Correct.
You said that he didn't say anything. He spoke to you quite a bit during the process, didn't he?
He did.
He showed you what he was doing.
He did.
He explained to you what he was doing.
He explained the process. I think you had asked me earlier about whether he explained the data, and he didn't.
He demonstrated great proficiency, wouldn't you say?
He ended up with a successful acquisition of the card at the end of the process.
When you are considering all your equations, did you consider the timing information taken from the SD card that Mr. Burgess found regarding power on and power off of that car?
Yes, to the extent that he considered it in his own report. Again, I'm referencing his report.
But how about you? You're coming in here giving an opinion saying what's better or best practice or right. How about you? Did you consider, you personally, the one who's giving the opinions, did you consider the significance of the power on, power off data as it relates to all these times?
Yes.
Yes? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I considered it. If that's the question is, did I consider it? I considered it.
Did you do any study yourself?
No.
Now, we agree, or you agree, that there are variances between different devices.
Yes.
So a Lexus clock that comes from the infotainment system is very common that it would be different than a different device like an iPhone.
Specifically this Lexus, I don't know if we can make the statement that it's common or not, because, again, this is the only time that I know of that this specific data has been analyzed. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Did you say on direct examination that variances between devices are common?
Variance between devices are common.
In a variance of 45 seconds, that wouldn't be remarkable on
No.
different devices. It's common in the industry.
Correct.
And in your business, that's an accepted amount.
I'm not sure what you mean by accepted. The amounts are what they are, and we have to correct for them. I've done analyses of clocks that are anywhere from completely correct, 1 second off. I've done analyses of clocks that are 25 years apart. So it's a wide range of possibilities.
I understand your point.
Yeah.
If you see, as an analyst, a 45-second variance or 30-second variance, that wouldn't shock you, would it?
No amount of variance would shock me, is the answer.
I want to ask you questions and go through your PowerPoint. And I want to ask you your specific opinions and how you arrived at certain claims that you've made.
Sure.
Okay? If we could put up Mr. DeSorga's new PowerPoint, 52525. You've made a modification to your PowerPoint?
Yes.
You've made an amendment to your PowerPoint?
Yes.
So there was something that happened, you received new information or new data, and you updated or changed your PowerPoint.
I did.
And that's an appropriate thing to do when you receive new information, isn't it?
Yes.
If you have new data, you don't want to leave it behind. You want to make the best presentation with the best data you can.
I'd want my presentation of the data to be as accurate as possible, so I included all the data.
And you would expect that from any expert, wouldn't you? If they received new information or analyzed new data and it was important, it would be an appropriate best practice to update the PowerPoint or information they're providing, wouldn't it?
I'm going to allow that.
I don't know if I would tell other experts what their best practices are. I would say, generally as experts, we do work that our clients ask us to do. So if we're asked to do it, we do it. If our clients say, hey, don't do that, then we don't do it.
Well, you like the phrase best practice on direct, so I'm just wondering if I can borrow that phrase.
Sustain.
Okay. We can turn to page 2. Now, this is taken from Dr. Welcher's report.
Yes.
And again, you did no testing whatsoever. You just read
I did
the report.
not.
Did you read all of Dr. Welcher's data, the gigabytes and gigabytes of data? Did you go through it all?
Not every slide, no.
Not just the PowerPoint. I mean the actual massive amount of data in his study. Did you go through the data?
Oh, no, I didn't look at any of the data.
Did you ever speak to Dr. Welcher?
No.
And so when you are making assumptions on what he thought or how he analyzed, you're just guessing.
I am looking at what Dr. Welcher put in his trial presentation, and my assumption that's baked in there is that he's going to stand behind the things he says in a presentation, so I'm taking them at face value, but as being correct.
Well, it's not a matter
I'm
of
not guessing.
It's not a matter if he's going to stand behind it. You don't know why he put something in here. You just see it on the paper. You don't know what his thought process was, did you?
To an extent, yes, because I understand how the exemplar testing by Aperture laid the foundation to align the key-on events in the infotainment to the Lexus VCH events.
When Dr. Welcher made his PowerPoint, do you know whether or not he was relying on 154 on Mr. O'Keefe's phone, stamp 154, as the end of the event as opposed to the beginning of the three-point turn, 1162-1?
Based on the math he uses, that's the implication. He puts a number on the screen that the only way you could reach that number is by making that assumption. So when I looked at the math, yes, that assumption seems baked into the math he did.
So this seems like it's baked in that he was assuming 154 on John O'Keefe's phone was the end of the three-point turn.
Not on this slide, on a later slide, but yes.
Okay. And you said that variances, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, they're very common when you're comparing two different devices, right?
Yes.
Okay. Turn to the next page, please. You point out 2 times for the jury, the Lexus event 1162-2 ends 12:31:43, right?
Yes.
And that's based on the clock in the infotainment system.
That time is based on 2 things: the clock in the infotainment unit and the cumulative key-on timer in the text stream data. So it's a combination of 2 values.
Which is the running clock.
Correct.
Right. And that is compared or contrasted or coordinated with the log on off time that was found on the SD card. Yes?
Yes.
And without that SD card, we wouldn't have that time now, would we?
Correct.
Okay. 123209 isn't something you analyzed, but you just read in the report that that is information from Ian Whiffen suggesting or taking the position that was the last user interaction John O'Keefe had with his cell phone, 123209.
That's how I understand it. There was a phone lock at 12:32:09. I did not look into the underlying reports from where that came.
And you know those are 2 different devices, 2 different clocks that will have a variance.
Yes.
You mentioned trigger event, and you said that your preference is to, when you're doing times, to point it from the actual trigger event, and there was a little slap for emphasis to target you on that, right? The trigger event. that's not a standard practice or a protocol that is supported by any type of literature, is it?
It's the methodology I teach, especially in the class I teach on the analysis of heavy vehicle data. We have the exact same problem with heavy vehicles. They all have clocks on them. And so, in fact, I do a lot of clock adjustment on heavy vehicles relative to other sources. And the way I teach it, I'm not the only instructor. Collectively, the way we all teach it is we generally start the analysis at the trigger, which is not to suggest you have to do that. It's not wrong to do it a different way, but that would be let's call it the default methodology.
The default methodology, do you have any professional literature that says that is the best time to start the analysis?
Not literature. I mean, that's sort of my opinion, because that introduces the least amount of variables. Once you start trying to align events off of subsequent times, you just introduce more addition and subtraction or math you have to do. So it's easiest to do T0 and align everything from there.
If you're lining up the end of one event with the end of another event, it's more coordinated than if you take it from different spots, isn't it?
That could be a scenario where then you wouldn't use it. Right. Like I said, it's not the only way, but it's the default way.
I don't disrespect your method, but there are other ways to do it that are just as legitimate as the trigger knot.
Absolutely. And that's why I didn't change the convention here. I used their convention,
So you're
apertures.
not suggesting that Mr. Burgess was being misleading by choosing the endpoint when he pronounced that's exactly the point he was considering, are you?
No.
And so the word cherry picking, you're not saying he was cherry picking, are you?
I don't remember the context in which I used the word cherry picking, but I don't think it was with respect to a trigger alignment.
So there's no legitimate professional basis of suggesting your way is better or worse than going from the front or the end of the event.
No.
So you're not offering criticism on that. So just so I understand.
Not criticism. I pointed out that it's not typical, and I pointed out not even to say specifically that it's not typical, because even that, to your point, might sound critical. I just want to be clear that I adopted their convention. It's not the way I would have done it, but I kept that convention consistent in my analysis, so I wasn't changing in the middle, trying to obfuscate what I'm saying.
I appreciate that. So if someone's looking end to end, you're not going to add 5 seconds. It's if someone went from middle to end.
Could you give me that?
Yeah, you were
A little
suggesting
different.
those questions about, well, since you're looking at the end instead of the middle, then you got to add another 5 seconds on. That's not really an accurate analysis if you're looking at a comparison from end to end. You wouldn't then add the 5 seconds to the time of the trigger because you're starting at the end from both devices.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow it if you can answer it in that form.
It's going to depend on if you're doing an alignment with something that is a range of values, then you have to be consistent on where you're doing it. If you're doing discrete points, then that's just a single point in time. There's no beginning or end. It's just a single second. So the best answer I can kind of give is it depends on what you're doing.
Well, in this case, they were basing it off the end of the event. The end, not the trigger, the end. Comparing it comparatively to the end of a different device. So you wouldn't just add 5 seconds just for the heck of it.
You would not add 5 seconds for the heck of it.
You see 12:32:09 minus 12:31:43, the middle line, equals 26 seconds. Isn't that in Dr. Welcher's slides before, let me phrase it more cleanly, before Shannon Burgess analyzed the data more closely on May 8th, in his May 8th report? Isn't this the exact difference in time that Dr. Welcher cites in his PowerPoint, 26 seconds?
Objection.
I'll sustain it in that form.
Did you see, when you reviewed reports, that Dr. Welcher uses this exact number, plus 26 seconds in his report?
I got the number from the PowerPoint.
I'm sorry,
not the
PowerPoint.
report, but that is all of the numbers here on this slide are from Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint. And on the previous slide, I show that. So these are all just copied straight from that.
And you've labeled this John's interaction window.
I did.
Okay. Interaction window,
Do you think it might be confusing when you use interaction window to make it seem like the event was limited to 10 seconds?
No, and that's not the implication there at all.
That's not what you're trying to say.
That's not what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough, fair enough.
If I can clarify what I mean by interaction window is that there's
Please do.
a range of times that we end up with when we start running these adjustments. So we never land on a singular point of alignment. We end up, like I showed at the end, with 30 points. That's the window that I'm talking about. That's the window that I mean.
So if we could put up page 33 from Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint, just to illustrate the point you're trying to help us with. Widen that a little for me. So this represents, you've seen this, right?
It looks familiar, like it's from one of his slides. And if I've seen it, I did not spend a lot of time digging into it.
Does this look like the 10 seconds of data that would be captured from a triggering event in a text stream data?
Objection.
I want to see you at sidebar. So jurors, we're going to release you for the luncheon break. I took so long here to make sure that we could give you a nice full hour luncheon break. So we'll see you back here in an hour.
Please rise for the jury.
Follow me, please.